Today's video is sponsored by Aura. It's a really important time to be talking about Aura because hackers have stolen the social security numbers of every American. Over 2.9 billion records were stolen from national public data, which offers personal information to employers, private investigators, staffing agencies, and others doing background checks. These stolen records include a person's full name, address, date of birth, social security number, and phone number, along with alternate names and birth date. And members of the hacker group have reportedly released this information for free online. I've had credit cards hacked, and I'm sure many of you have as well. If you weren't taking precautions with your personal information online before, this should be a huge wake-up call. You've never been more vulnerable online than you are right now. But I'm not too worried about it now because I use Aura. Aura alerts me if they find my phone number, email, or social security number on the dark web. They're going to let me know right away if anyone tries to use this information to access my credit or bank accounts. Plus, they give me up to $5 million in identity theft insurance should the worst-case scenario happen. They also provide a bunch of other features to keep you safe online, all inside one app. I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches. And if you don't want to either, you can go to aura.com/soft white underbelly to try 2 weeks for free. And now back to the video. So you just retired recently.
I did. I retired the end of March, right in the beginning of April.
What's it feel like to be retired now?
I'll be honest with you. I think the big joke is I went from 8 jobs to 7. It's so I had 38 years with Watertown Police, and just hit 38, and it was kind of a point where I was already maxed out, and it was time to go, and I had a tough time going. Everyone says how's retirement, and it's like, I don't know. It's I miss it already. I've only been out since April. I mean, I've been there.
How many years did you do?
I did 38, and
Watertown's just right next to Boston.
Yep, the next town over. We could actually put 1 foot in Watertown and 1 foot in Boston at the same time if you wanted, you know. But and the thing was, I didn't want to go. And when a bunch of people come up to me and started talking to me, and they're like, "Buddy, you're maxed out. Like, it's time to go. You've been maxed out for 2 years. You've been here forever. Like, it's time to go." And I always said I was the youngest guy in the police department forever, and now I became one of the oldest, you know. And I go, "I'm not leaving." And they go, "Why not?" I said, "Because you don't understand what we have here. This is the best job in the world. It's not a job, it's a lifestyle." And a couple of guys grabbed me, and these guys who I idolized to the point that, you know, it's not embarrassed to say it. They are my true idols. They were legends to me, and they were giants. And they said, "Buddy, you're holding on to something that's never coming back. I want you guys back." And they're like,
did you grow up wanting to be a cop?
Oh yeah, first grade. My mother has a picture. I drew detective, not cop. I always wanted to be a detective. And geez, every other kid just drew as a police, but I said I want to be a detective. And then at just about 11 years old, the Watertown had a junior police program. So I was on a junior police, and I actually have the newspaper article that one of the old-time detectives who actually got me started in this, Okie O'Connor, came to the station and gave me the picture. And here we are, like in 1976, we're 10 years old. I got this stupid Dick Tracy watch on, whatever, and this fat little kid in the front row, and I'm like in the front row listening to everything what he said. It was Richie Gagnon was a sergeant at the time, and he'll come into play later on. But and that was it. I loved it, and I got out of there. I did my stuff, went to school, and then right after high school, I started working for the police as a dispatcher, and then patrol, and then the ultimate dream was detectives, which I did my last 22 years in detectives. So it was something.
How did you see the crime scene change over the years, over the decades?
Oh, it's wild. So this is the thing. So, and I got to get you to understand this. So in a town like Watertown, we're a small town, but we're busy enough to keep us busy, but we're not LA. You know what I mean? We're right in the middle. We're 4 square miles with 40-something thousand people, so we're tight. You know, and everyone's like, "Well, what do you want after you retire?" I want to be able to open up both car doors at the same time and not hit my neighbor's bushes. That's what I want to do. But when I started working there, these guys, when I tell you they took me in, like it wasn't like, "Get this fat kid out of here," this little guy running around. They were like unbelievable. Taught me everything I learned. And then these guys started in 1958, 1960, when they were getting out to retire, when I started in 86. So they're on the way out and I was on the way in. So I had that era. I also had the middle group who was there for a while, and I had some young people. So I was lucky enough to get it all and learn from all of them. But these guys here, when you talk about the crime then, they were getting the burglaries, the armed robberies, the banks, all these kind of things. But the criminals themselves have completely changed. So when I started, there was the crook, the burglar and all these kind of things. We still have them, armed robberies and things like that. But now you get into a lot of cybercrime, a lot of different crimes where today's detectives are using cell phone technology, geofences, and things like that. And I think a lot of the old school go bang on doors and talk to people are gone. And to me, that's how you solve cases.
What are some of the biggest cases that you worked on?
Well, the absolute biggest case I ever worked on was the Boston Marathon bombing capture. That was in Watertown. That was an interagency. That was the largest case I've ever worked on.
Explain what that was again for people that don't know.
So on April 15th, 2013, two brothers set off two bombs, pressure cookers at the Boston Marathon finish line on Boylston Street. And the marathon is a generational thing where families have gone for years and years and years. That's the big deal. Matter of fact, the Red Sox, their schedule, they have an 11 o'clock start, so they finish in time so people can go from Fenway over to the finish line. And they've been playing at home since 1959 because of that. And on that day, everything went crazy. I mean, as a lot of people know. And then within 4 days later, the two guys who did it actually ended up in a shootout in my town where one of them was killed, and we captured the other one 19 hours later in a boat. But, that's the biggest one. But there was a lot of other ones, involving children and older people and things like that were awful. And then there's some that you really made a difference. Like you really did make a difference in some kid's life or in other people's lives.
Is that the best part of being a detective, is making a difference in people's lives?
100%. There's not even a question. And in my opinion, and I've always said, I would never be the guy to say these young kids or do it, because I'm not. I still think I'm a young kid, but I will tell you this. I work with people that there was never an issue of getting credit. Everything we did in the detective division was we. We did it, we did this, we did that. We screwed up, we did great. I might have solved the whole thing in this one case, it's we. I might have done a little support on this case, and they did it, but that's it. And that's how I think it was.
Your team.
It was a team. And that's what I learned very, very young, and then we have something called NEMLEC. It's the Northeast Massachusetts Law Enforcement Council. So what that is, it's like 67 police departments, don't quote me on the number, but all of Northeast Massachusetts. So at the time, nobody had 10 detectives to go watch you for the day. We call it a day in the life. This guy's hitting houses or doing whatever, we want to follow this guy. So how do you do it? Well, we made our own deal. There was no official task force. It was like, hey, all right, I'll choose my schedule, whatever, and we'd all work with each other and work together and solve the case. And at the end, everybody took care of everybody. It was great. And I think that's what's missing, unfortunately, because even there, when I started, there was a guy named Jimmy Pierce, an old school Winchester, Massachusetts detective. He ran NEMLEC. I come in, my first day in detectives, I don't know anything, and my first meeting, I should say, and takes me right in. How you doing, buddy? I said, I'm David MacNeil. Who are you? I'm Jimmy Pierce. Oh, I heard about you. And after that, here's what you need. Guys like Lester Sullivan in Cambridge, Mass. These guys are all legends in their own towns, but what's so funny, the very first day I started in detectives, everybody else had cases. I didn't have anything yet because I just walked in the door. And there was a group of guys from Cambridge, Mass. that were going around. Now Cambridge is where Harvard University is and the hospitals. It's a pretty up and coming, it's a very busy city. Whacking gyms. Like you go in, you work out in the gym, you come back, you get dressed, you leave. You don't even know you've been hit until the next time you go to use that credit card. So these are high-end gyms, like the steam rooms and all this kind of stuff. So they say, hey, you're going undercover. You're going to work this case. I said, all right. I go down and talk to the guy. Shortly after that, it's decided I'm going to go undercover and go sit in that gym. Mark, I'm going to tell you something. You could do it for a couple of days, but for 22 days, you can't sit in a men's locker room every day and sit like this while guys come in, get dressed, work out, come home, take a shower, go to work, and I'm still sitting there. The first day it's like, yeah, I'm not a great self-starter, procrastinator. My personal trainer didn't show up. Eventually I got to be like, what the hell is this guy doing here? So very quickly.
You had to stay in the bathroom.
Yeah, in the locker room. That's what we did because they were coming in and hitting the lockers. So you had to float around and do whatever. And it's like, what is this guy doing here? So I'll wrap it up quick. But out of 22 days, I had 2 days where somebody helped me. And a detective, very good friend of mine, Dave Collins, I said, hey, can you jump in with me tomorrow? I don't know. I think this thing's going to go. It was Holy Thursday. He said, yeah, no problem. Just don't get me beat up for Easter. Well, 6:30 in the morning, we go in there, and by 6:50, I had a broken jaw. He had his heart got smashed in. We drove down to the guy. We lost him. We're both in the hospital. I mean, disaster. The guy gets away. But luckily, 11 o'clock that night, everybody from Nemlik got together. I mean, the state police offered their helicopter. I mean, 2 cops got hurt. That was it. And by 11 o'clock that night, we had the guy in custody. So, but you talk about the old school way of doing things. In that story, the guy who hit me, he was going around, he was one of the guys that were going around doing this. And he goes to prison, one of the jails up in Mass. And there was a table of Watertown guys there. And they say, what are you in for, whatever. He says, I banged up a couple of Watertown detectives, whatever. They go, yeah, who was it? Dave MacNeil and another guy. The guy goes, Dave MacNeil. He goes, he's actually a pretty good guy. You should have hit him. So at the time when he got sentenced, the guy actually said, I'm sorry. He goes, I heard from other prisoners that I was a good guy. So I guess if that means anything, a little feather in your hat.
Do you think that there was something in your life that directed you to be a good guy rather than a bad guy?
Oh, yeah. It was the way I was taught coming up. So when I was young, my parents got divorced very young. And I was always around the police, the boys club, the police department, doing whatever. And I would see how they did things, you know what I mean? And we didn't have much growing up. I mean, we didn't have a shower until we were 12 years old, you know what I mean? So my mother did everything. So my mother, I always say there's 2 people that walk on water. There's Jesus and my mother, and that's it, She held everything together. I mean, we didn't know that the lights were shut off. We thought we were just playing games in the dark, and that was what you're supposed to do. I mean, whatever. We had no idea. We never knew we were broke because we thought we had everything we needed, and we did, But so I was always around the police, and I saw how they did things. Do you know what I mean? Like they had a Christmas party. We had a sergeant named Sonny Hooley, and he's passed away now. And when he passed away, the name of the street is Sonny Hooley Way of the old police station. We now have a new one. But these guys took it on, and now we have the Hooley Foundation, where we give, the foundation gives to 180 something families every holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, because he was the old school guy. If your bike got stolen, he'd go buy one and give it to you and say, hey, we caught the guy, and the guy got you a new one. But that was the thing that made it work. Believe me, if someone needed something, they got it. If you needed to be treated badly, you got it. If you needed a break, you got it. And everything just worked. It was just awesome.
Is there a difference between the good guys and the bad guys?
Oh, 100%.
The cops and criminals?
Look at it now.
Because I've heard some people say it's the same thing. It's just...
Well, look at it now. You have the police now, right? And I have friends of mine from NYPD, we're here right where we are now, that say the best of the best are the absolute best, and our worst are the worst. And the problem is that there's this much of a portion that makes problems. And that's getting magnified now so much to a point that it's flooding the floodgates with all these bad stories. You don't have the other 99 stories to back it up to say, look at what the other guys are doing, who come to work every day to do stuff. I can't tell you how many times we bought coffees for people. A lady got caught shoplifting, but what is she stealing? A toaster oven and bread to do whatever? Well, okay, she's not doing this to sell it. They need it. Diapers. I mean, come on. These are the big things. But I think you can absolutely see the clear line between who's good and who's bad. And on as far as the criminals go too, you get young guys that you talk to, and I try to talk to them with respect and do whatever and have this kind of conversation. And then you don't get those kind of answers. You get very tough answers back, do whatever. But you get a career criminal, and you have a conversation with them, and we talk just like we're talking right now. It's unbelievable. I learned more about prison from those guys than anybody.
What do you think happened in their lives that directed them?
Well, a lot of them will tell you that they got involved in drugs early, or they had a bad upbringing, or they got involved in street gangs and things like that. So I'd have a conversation with them. I said, what do you mean? He said, oh, my father took off, I did whatever. I said, okay, well, Jesus, not for nothing. I said, but my parents are divorced, and I said, my brother's on the fire department, and I'm on the police. I'm not going through somebody's window, and that's, you kind of have a conversation where things resonate, and you have a connection. But, I don't know if you can curse on this thing or not.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, so, in police work, there's the bullshit card. You know what I mean? Everybody knows the bullshit card and who's bullshitting. If I call you in, I never met you before in my life, and I say, Mark, I can tell you're a good guy. You're like, you don't know. How do you know I'm a good guy? You don't know anything about me. You have to talk for a while, build a rapport, and then you see what's going on. In a few minutes, you can tell who's who. And they'll know you or they won't know you. Same thing when I'm teaching crime scene to policemen. You know what I mean? If I say, someone asks me a question, I'm like, oh yeah, you can use this. They know right away it's bullshit. That's what they do. They're investigators. So you have to stay in your own lane. That's really the big deal. But the good crooks and the bad crooks, and it's tough to say that, and I hate to say the word crook, just say, I don't know, criminal, whatever it is. There's an absolute difference. And I always say that to people too. When you can get someone to come in and they're saying they're absolutely innocent, and in that interview you flip them to absolute guilt, there's a lot going on there. And there's usually one time in an interview when that happens. And if you lose it, you never get it back. That's the key to doing these things in closing cases.
Has the crimes have changed over the years?
Oh yeah.
You did it almost 40 years.
Yep.
How have things changed?
Well, before, you'd have things where...
Yeah, you said the basics.
Yeah, just the basics, whatever. And now we're getting into, all these scams, these internet scams, where people are losing $50, $70, $100, $250,000 in scams, gift card scams, all these kind of things. But what you see now is a collaboration now from other agencies, the post office, the police, the retail outlets, all these things. You go in to buy something at CVS and you try to activate 10 Amazon cards for Christmas. Something's going to pop up and say, just so you know, there are scams out there. Are you doing this for a reason? The grandparent scam. You call a grandparent, they know all about it. They go into the Census Bureau, they do a background check on one of these social media sites. They know all the kids. They call you up, hey, I'm in trouble, do whatever. Can you send $10,000 in Apple iTunes gift cards? And the guy's going to let me out. Like, on one hand you go, how did you fall for that? But then, because people say, how did you fall for that? I don't think a lot of them are reporting it because they're embarrassed of what happened to them. Mm. So it gives the police less to work with, and it gives the victim a response to tell their story.
Is it harder to investigate?
Absolutely, because they're using these proxy servers that are overseas. So I could be sitting in a Starbucks, hitting on a Wi-Fi there, but my server is somewhere in Nigeria or another country, whatever. I'm not picking on their country, but that's where one of them were. And you can't trace that. I mean, you have all kinds of task forces or whatever, but eventually Western Union had to pay a lot of people back their money because the money was going to the same address all the time, and it was a bullshit address. And at the end of the day, they have to say, okay, well, somebody should have picked this off a long time ago, and that's how it happened.
Organized crime is big in Boston.
Yeah.
Did you see a lot of that?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that well, I shouldn't say unfortunately. I'm going to tell you, it has fallen off a little bit. So coming up, I said my parents were divorced, and when I was very, very young, about 4 years old, my mother met a guy who, in essence, raised us. So at the time, I had my father and I had my dad. So my dad was in the horse race business, and we had race horses our whole life, and very, very young, most kids were going to Cape Cod, they're going to Maine, they're doing hair, they're doing whatever. I was going to Foxborough Raceway, where the Patriots used to play. At the time, it was Schaefer Stadium. We were going back to way before Brady was there, and stayed there, learned that business. And at the age of 16, I was a groom at Foxborough Raceway. Now, Watertown, Mass. Like, you went to the park, you did your stuff, you did things, whatever. You weren't up at a horse track with horses in Watertown. You didn't do it. So I think that was another skill that I picked up because my stepfather was involved in the law. The guy who ended up marrying my mom, and my stepfather, was involved in that element there, which obviously in the racetrack you see a lot of things that aren't perfect, So I learned a lot of skills there, very, very young, watching how people talked, how people answered, what people did. So I took a lot of that and then mounted that with what I learned from old school detectives and guys who really schooled me, and then guys I networked later on. And I think through all of it, I was able to take a little bit from everything and kind of develop your own styles, which every detective should do. You should develop your own style.
But the mob is just there's a cast of characters there that are
and
unlike anything else.
They're still around too, and every weekend in the summer we'd go down the North End. They used to have the Italian festivals and all that kind of stuff. There was never any crime there, never. You'd never see a store get broken into, a woman get assaulted, none of that. But it's no secret. It's all over they made movies about it, with Whitey Bulger and all them, whatever, which, looking at that guy as a policeman, and believe me, I am not saying it's right in any way, shape, or form, but I'm going to tell you this. When you just said the good guys from the bad guys, whatever, Whitey Bulger used to introduce himself as a good bad guy. Now, you have to be one. You can't be good, bad. You have to pick one. What are you going to be? You can't do that. So this is what ruins things. Now, here at the point, the mob here now, they've dwindled down, but then you're never going to get rid of them completely. But again, even they're more high tech now. It's not the old scams. They're doing all high tech stuff now with construction and all this kind of things, whatever. And that's makes the world go round, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Do you? Are there memorable cases that you worked on?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You know, there are cases where people look at it and they go, "Oh, a string of burglaries, whatever." But to me, if someone comes in your home, I mean, that's your place, right? That's your place where you're supposed to be completely comfortable and you put all your stuff where you want. And somebody comes in and goes through all your stuff and throws it around like you're nothing. You know, when you get a series of burglaries like that and they hit 60, 80, 90, 100 homes, and you can pick them off with a fingerprint or a footwear impression or things like that, and you use the skills that you actually been trained on time and time again to put it together, that's very, very rewarding. You know what I mean? And with NEMLEC, we had a crime scene response team there, and I was lucky enough. We had 2 trucks, big 12-foot, 13-foot trucks, and I was lucky enough to have one, and another guy in North Andover had the other. So, with the police department, there was a mutual trust there with me, and I'm very happy we had it. They were able to send me to the National Forensic Academy, which is the body farm down in Tennessee. At the time, there was only one other guy who had gone, and so when I came back after 10 weeks, packed up, moved to Tennessee for 10 weeks. You're down there. You know, I had little kids. It was the middle of the winter. I'm gone. I got on there. We learned stuff from a basic fingerprint all the way how to investigate a homicide. So when you come back, you can start applying these things to do it. Now we're like, man, we have all these resources. Do you know we could do this? Do you know we could do that? So we were applying these things to other cases, and we were having it work pretty well. But because of that, I ended up getting picked up by Patricia Cuomo. She's a best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author with the Scott Pettis series. So was the benefactor for the National Forensic Academy and lived in Massachusetts. So when I came back, we ended up hooking up, and she started doing ride-alongs with me or whatever, and I got to be like a forensic consultant on 3 books and a couple of movies. Well, a couple of books that became movies, Lifetime series. And so that's the thing. Like, you talk about the career at the beginning, but it's like, wow, like you come in as this little kid looking at everybody like this is unbelievable. Then you start as a dispatcher, you make detective. I'm in Tennessee and I'm riding around with somebody like that, and we're doing, she had me trained at Blackwater to be her protection. So I was doing security right here across the street at Good Morning America, flying in, doing out, and that's a lot for a small town detective, you know what I mean? And I appreciated the ability to do that.
Are you an adrenaline junkie?
Yeah.
I think all cops are, right?
Yeah, I think you gotta be. You know what I mean? You get up there and you want to be focused on things, and you're hyper-focused on things, But that's good and that's bad, because once you get tunnel vision, you start to lose. You gotta be able to look at everything. You can't just think, okay, this is the guy, and you can't make all the evidence just fit that guy. You gotta look at what you have and see where it falls. And that's where you gotta make the break, But
Does it affect your home life?
Oh, yeah. So I got married very young. That was the plan. And we had kids very young. And the whole goal was, hey, I'm going to retire and we're going to do this. But, and when I first got married, she was the best policeman's wife ever. That was the running joke. And went the police station, the kids, my mother, and her. That's the way it went, you know what I mean? But in 2002, I went on call for the Watertown Police, and I never said no to a call out to the day I retired. I never, not once, said, maybe not tonight, could you get somebody else? Never. And, for 20-something years, it was good enough. And then things started to break down a little bit, whatever, and now we're training for home, and, we're separated now. Well, we're split up now, and she's met somebody, and I met somebody, and we're just trying to make everything meld, so it's kind of like, you look at it, it's like, that's it. And this is where the police are changing things like that now. They have all these trainings that don't make the job first, don't do these kind of things. But this is and it's great, but I think that's what brings it from a job to a lifestyle. The lifestyle was, you're a detective. And they had this PhD came in one time. He's an old Tucson cop, Kevin Gomot. We ended up becoming friends. And he'd say, hey, who are you? What do you do? I said, I'm a detective. Whatever. Oh, I'm this, I'm that. And he read up the thing. You're supposed to say, I work as a detective. You're not supposed to say, I am a detective. Because right away, that's your identifier, But, that's one of the biggest jokes of the police department, how I used to introduce myself. David Neal, Watertown PD. Like, WADDA, DON PD, But that's the difference. But they teach people now that you can't do it all, because what happens is you start doing these cases and you start doing them and you're married to them, and that's the difference between patrol and
It's hard not to. Huh?
yeah, you can't, and that's the whole thing. If you don't have passion and you don't have dedication, you're done in the detective world. And the other thing you have to have, and it's kind of a connect, is contacts, resources, and networks. You could be the best detective in the world. If you don't have resources and network, you can't do anything. Nobody commits a crime just in those 4 square miles, and that's it. You have to be able to work with each other, and that's the whole thing. And that's where the lifestyle comes in. Who's retired? Who got promoted? You got to go to these events all the time. And then what happens? You start doing cases. I can't tell you of any search warrant that we ever did. It doesn't matter what day of the week it was, that we didn't go out right afterwards, and that was it. And you start, hey, we had a lucky day today, whatever. You start having a few pops. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and now we're an after-hours club at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? And that was all the time. You know what I mean? But now I sit across from you and I have cirrhosis. So it's like, was it from the booze? I was Christ, 140 pounds heavier than from today when I saw you.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. A human circle, that's all it was. I was a human circle doing cases. So, in that regard, that's a big obstacle too, because, again, this is not, I'm not being conceited here or whatever, but I was kind of known for a couple of things. Interviews, closing interviews, and doing crime scenes. That was my kind of 2 things, and I told you, the crooks know the bullshit card. But when you walk in at 350 pounds, do you know what I mean? They're looking at you like an unmade bed. You're already 40 points to the negative when you start here. So you got to build yourself up. You got to do a lot of things. And this guy got to believe in you to make the confession. And I was lucky with that. You know what I mean? And now, when I found that I got sick, and again, going right back to the old timers. I hate to revert to it, but I can't tell you how much of an impact these guys made on my life. Like, I barely used sick time in my career. I had 34 years maybe at the time, whatever, and I started getting sick. I got my shoulder hurt, and I would never go out injured because I didn't want to be one of the injured guys, But I got banged up, and I had to have a shoulder surgery. Fast forward the story, I end up having to have another surgery. As a result of all this, I get some infections, whatever, and fast forward at 100 miles an hour, they find out I have full-blown cirrhosis. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, there wasn't a day that didn't go by that not one of those guys called me. Hey, how you doing, kid? Hey, what's up, buddy? And I'm 55 years old at the time. How am I doing, kid? You're 90. You're 85. You're getting operated on every other day. You're worried about me. But what I'm trying to say is that's what was there, that bond. And especially in detectives. The old school detectives, it was like a police department within a police department. Something could happen over the weekend, and this guy could be all banged up, or whatever, had problems at home, or he had to move out, or his kid won an award, whatever it is. Everybody knew it. But then when you walked out of the office, it was always a unified front. And everybody still got together. Everybody was like brothers and sister officers. But in detectives, it's a little different, I think. I know. It is. I carry an older detective, Peter Seminar's badge today. He gave it to me when I made detective, and that's like the biggest honor ever. My uncle was a policeman in Watertown, badge 236. I took it over. You know what I mean? So that's the badge I have. Other detectives, they've had their own personal problems, do whatever, and people in town say bad things or good things, whatever. But Joe Degnan was another detective who was just great to me. Mel Malahy. Now you talked about the types of crimes. You can't say gypsies anymore. You have to say transient criminals. Okay, but with me, I'm very good friends with the gypsies. Matter of fact, at my retirement party, and I shit you not, they were there, front row, at my retirement party. We do a thing called the last roll call, your final roll call. And you go up front, and I read off the roll call, who has what route, and do all this kind of stuff, and you give a little speech, and you do your last radio sign-off. So I told you I was like a 10-year-old boy who lost his dog when I retired, so I couldn't even get a word out. I didn't shut up for 38 years, but I could speak on my last day, But the gypsies were there. They came, did whatever, and right there, this is my mother, here's everybody. And they're like, oh, David arrested me 50 times, but we love the guy. But they would break into houses, they would rob people, they'd do the scams, but then I could call them up and say, what the hell are you doing? You got this old lady's mother's ring, you got to get it back. So we would make arrangements to get the ring back, and whatever it was, however it would work, we'd make sure we got everything back. Because that lady didn't care if this guy got 100 years to the can. She wanted the ring back, That's the kind of stuff that was done. I mean, Mel Malahy, he was an old school detective, and he knew them all. and he would take me to Castle Island in Boston, and we'd walk around the Castle Island in the morning, because I was big at the time, and he wanted to get me to lose weight to get into the academy. And we'd be walking Castle Island, and all the gypsies would be coming up, and people, and he introduced to me and he vouched for me right there. So at that point, you got to know, you could never do anything to embarrass that guy or ruin the relationship that's been around. That's the kicker. That's the thing.
You've been around enough decades to see the change. Do you think society is getting worse?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because I think the average person wants to be good. Even the worst criminals, want to be good. When you talk to them and you talk to them about their family and you talk about certain things, those are the things that they hit on. Like if you bring somebody in for an interview, and you say, I'll tell you what, buddy, you're going to go to jail for 10 years. And the guy has no place to live, has nothing, does whatever. He's like, great, I don't care. This is the one thing, whatever it is. You have to find the soft spot of what they want, of what goes after them. You know what I mean? They have a little child, they have something like that. Say, what are you doing to your kid? Like, what's going on here? And it's not tricks to get them to confess. It's true. It's really true. And I really believe that everybody at some point has an inner core that's good, but society, look at the crimes that we're getting now. I mean, there are really a lot of violent crimes and things like that before. I mean, theft is theft. You're going to have it. You've always had it. It's going to happen. Gambling's going to be there, all these kind of things that are happening. But when you're talking about things like human trafficking and victim crimes and these rapes and murders and things, it's horrific. I mean, sexual assaults were some of the hardest crimes ever to work. You know what I mean? But policing itself, I mean, for the horrific crime that it is, has been, we've changed the process on that quite a bit, which is a big deal because the woman doesn't have to come in and tell the story to 17 different people. One guy and another guy who gives you a different face, or a woman who doesn't look like she's listening, or whatever. We have specialized people to talk with us, with children and kids and things like that, to try to streamline it, to try to give resources back. It's I can't talk from experience, but from what I hear from people, it's like an unfinished murder. It's horrific, And that's the kind of crimes that you see.
What are some of the craziest cases you saw?
Well, I mean, you've had things where we had about 5 or 6 years back, I mean, there's a tow truck driver driving down the street. It was all over the news, so it's not a big secret, but he's just driving down the street and doing nothing. A big, burly guy. I mean, hands like catcher's mitts, doing whatever. Him and his brother had a towing company, and he's coming down one of our streets. And a guy and his mother, the mother was in her 70s or whatever, and he's 30s, 40s, whatever he is. They go into, supposedly, to a rehab in our town. One thing leads to another, an argument ensues. The guy hits the cab driver. They get into a cab to come home. The guy hits the cab driver in the head. The mother says, what the hell's wrong with you? The son gets out, and again, not to curse, he starts calling his mother terrible names, all kinds of things. And he gets out, he walks across the street. The mother stops the cab and says, let me out. So they're walking on opposite sides of the street. Now the Charles River's right beside them. The Charles River separates Boston and Cambridge. Charles River's coming down. They're talking back and forth the streets. Come over here, will you come on over? The mother goes to cross the street, and apparently, when she goes by, gets hooked up by the tow truck somehow. Goes underneath, and it was a long tow truck, huge bed. Tumbles underneath, does whatever. Truck stops, her head completely explodes, does whatever, and the guy sees it. The son sees what happens. He's looking at his mother with her head gone, completely banged up under the truck, runs over the tow truck driver. The guy's at the red light. He doesn't know what's going on. Opens the door, drags him out, stabs him multiple times, turns, sticks him in the side. The guy's, the blood's just gushing out.
He didn't realize he hit?
He had no idea what was going on. So you get there, you're like, what is happening here? Do you know what I mean? You got one guy who's sitting next to a car, a woman who has no head, this guy's stabbed. What could have happened here? So you get cases like that, and you're like, what is going on? And house fires. You go to house fires or buildings and things like that, and you see people that lost everything. It's horrific. But we had some good cases too. Where you get a lot of burglaries and things like that, and you get them, and then one guy, I actually became friends with him. He still writes me letters today, and the deal is when he comes out, he's going to show me how he got in. That's the whole deal. Like, I started my own business, an investigation business. I go, I want you to be my consultant to come in and show these guys how they're going to get in the place. He's like, yeah, I'll do it. I said, you were really up 22 floors? He goes, yeah. And I didn't believe me. That's bullshit. But he told me the conversation we were having. We were on the ground talking, saying, looking up like this. And it was 11 on this one. I said, there's no way he climbed 11 floors. He was on the 11th floor watching us talk the whole time. Crazy. He ended up telling me that later on, after he was convicted, of course. But again, I said Watertown's a small town with 4 square miles, but at the time, between legal, illegal, and apartments, we had about 22 massage parlors going, and people would rent an apartment in Watertown, and they'd pay the rent for the month, and they would just do obviously illegal massages out of there. So we would call up and make appointments. And the whole big thing was like
undercover.
Yeah, undercover. And they'd be like, okay, well, how are we going to do this? I go, what are you talking about? How does everybody else do it? We'll just call up and make an appointment. So I'd make the appointment, and we'd call up, I'd make the deal, and I'd go in and talk to the lady. And when I walked in on one of them, I knock on the door, she opens the door, and there's a bed in there and a laptop. And I go, well, this is a standard apartment in Boston, huh? A 1 bed, 1 laptop. She doesn't say nothing. And she goes, you want a massage? I said, yeah, that's what I'm here for. She goes, what's your name? I said, my name's Cosmo. She says, oh, you're Cosmo? I said, oh, yeah, my name's Cosmo. So I walk in, I got my flash money, I do whatever. And the deal is, whenever you get the mere agreement to have sex, it's over. I said, okay. So she said, you take your clothes off? I said, yeah. No, listen, I'm not insulting anybody. I'm just doing the best thing I can to make the story right. She was an Asian woman, and I'm a Boston accent. Can you only imagine the communication there? So we went in, she said, okay. She says, you take your clothes off. I said, okay. So she takes her clothes off. I go, is this standard or is this extra? She goes, no, this is standard. I said, all right. Well, at the time, I told you I was big. I was 300 and something pounds. So she gets on me, and I'm laying on my stomach, and I think you're going to get a massage. And she gets on my back, and she starts riding me like sea biscuits. She's holding onto my shoulders, and she's just bouncing like crazy. I'm like, what the hell is going on there? She goes, oh, you're so big around. You eat too much Chinese food. I go, I eat too much Chinese food. She goes, yeah, you should eat a vegetable. You should eat a vegetable. I say, listen, I'm not, we were joking around back and forth, and she's telling me this. So she says, okay, you flip over. I said, all right. I go to turn around, and she said, what do you want? I said, I want it all. I said, what do you got? So we make the deal to have the arrangement. And she said, okay, for $80 more. I said, okay, all right, stop. She starts leaning into me. I go, stop. She goes, you have a heart attack? I said, no. She must have thought because I was so big that I was going to have a heart attack. So we ended up making the arrest, and we get into the police station, and we bring her into the booking area. And again, I'm not insulting anybody, but this is how it went. The old lieutenant was in there, and he goes, what do you got now? I said, what do you mean? It's a prostitution over here, soliciting, whatever the charge was. He walks in, I do the charge, and she looks at me, she said, I want to tell you something. I go, what? She goes, I used to like a fat people. Now I hate a fat people. I go, you hate me? She says, yeah. Well, everybody starts hearing about it, and I start doing other cases. We did one up on the corner of Waverly Avenue. Now, I just got to take 1 second here, and I'll wrap it up. But, I told you the detectives were tight. We were a tight group. So if you come in and you see me in my underwear or whatever the heck it is, it's just part of the business, man. It's part of the day. There's no craziness. There's no nothing. Sexual harassment, none of that stuff. We're working a job. So I go in, and my boss, he ended up becoming chief, Mike Lawn. He says to me, what are you going to do? So I'm going to make a job. He goes, all right. Now listen, don't spend 2 hours trying to get the best deal on the price. We're going to get the money back in 2 minutes. So I would ask for all this money, and you had to give a phony name. Everybody else would use Jimmy, Danny, whatever. He goes, what's your undercover name? I said, Cosmo. He goes, Cosmo what? I go, Cosmo Delvisco. And as he's writing, he goes, why? Why does it have to be Cosmo Delvisco? I go, because it's a good name. So I walk in, I make the deal, and they do something, and I got to tell you, I'm embarrassed to say, it's called a tuna bath. You go in there, you have to be naked, and they soap you up, do whatever, and you're full of bubbles to do whatever. Now, the deal was, the minute the arrangement was made to have sex, whatever it is, the case is over, she gets arrested, and we move on. Well, I always call them last. So the next call that I dialed, I just hit the green button. And this is days of older phones. I hit the green button, would call those guys, they'd come in. Well, now I got my face in a freaking wet sponge, doing whatever, full of soap, and I'm pushing the button, and nobody's coming. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Nobody's around. So I go, what the hell's going on here? I'm like, they're going to be coming in any second. So it kept going on. You can't do that. So I finally said, you got to stop. I said, I'm the police. You're under arrest. She goes, what? She goes right into like this kickboxing mode, does whatever, and starts fighting me. Now, I don't have a stitch of clothing on, and I'm a human circle. I got soap on my head about 2 feet high, and I grab her to stop fighting me. And I can't get hold of anybody on the phone. I had to drag her out into the lobby of the building of the place to call 911 on the phone while I'm holding her. She's like a greased pig, for Christ's sake. I'm trying to hold on her, and I'm calling the station.
And you're naked?
100%. And I call 911, and I know the girl. She says, 911, what's your emergency? I go, hey, it's Dave MacNeil. I go, it's Dave MacNeil, send him in. She goes, you need the fire department? I go, it's Dave MacNeil, send him in. I can see him. They're as close as we are right now. He gets out, he's putting on his
bulletproof vest, whatever. I opened the door when I was stitching clothes and holding this girl. I go, nobody's shooting anybody in here. Get in here. Buddy, you talk about, if you ever asked me what was the most embarrassing day of police work, that's it. Freaking 300-something pounds with 2 feet of soap on your head holding a lady under arrest. Unbelievable. It was just, I ended up doing for other departments. I said, we do one in the morning, and I go to the second one. I said, you don't think she's going to know this is a scam? They go, why? I said, who goes to a massage pre-oiled? I'm already oiled up for the first one. I said, I can't go into the second one. I go, I smell like a large Italian sub. But we did it. We had a lot of fun. A lot of great stories,
What's the hardest case, like with kids?
Oh, yeah. We had a 10-week-old child. To this day, I don't know if any detective will tell you that it's not cases that you just pissed you couldn't put together. 10-week-old baby. When I tell you, Mark, he was the Gerber baby. This kid was perfect. And I talk about him in every crime scene class I have. I talk about him everywhere because it's a case where you had multiple crime scenes within a crime scene. You had all kinds of things happening here. And in a nutshell was the story came in that the child wasn't breathing. And I'm going to tell you right now, if I told you I listened to that tape 1,000 times, I'm not exaggerating. People say I told you 100 million times, don't exaggerate, whatever. But I really did listen to that 1,000 times, and I swore that father said, warm him up. But we get there, and he says, "Oh no, I have no idea." He goes, "My kid, we found him like this to do whatever." So we get there late. Patrol gets there first. They start working CPR on the child, and he goes to the hospital. So the first crime scene is the house. We check everything out. It's a dump. You can see they have drink glasses everywhere, cigarettes in the wine glass. The house is a shithole. But you take pictures to show negligence, whatever, dirty conditions, all these kind of things. Fast forward the story, I get up to the hospital. And the father's story sounds like, sounds like a credible guy. He's all upset. We get to the hospital. Now the child's on the table. I have to go in now. I'm a forensic guy, so I do all the photographs. So I do all the photographs of the child, and he's deceased at the hospital. First crime scene is the house, second crime scene is the hospital. I talk to the guy, I go, "Hey, listen, Detective MacNeil, Watertown Police, I'm very sorry for your loss," which we were. The guy's like, yeah, I know. 48 hours, yeah, I know. Do the question and get it over with. Let's go, let's get it over with. The kid's gone, let's go, do whatever. I'm like, what? Is this the same guy? Is this the guy? We got the right guy here? Yeah. Okay. Buddy, we're going to go down the private room down here. We walk down the private room of the hospital. They always tell you, never put anybody behind you. Always, you never put anybody behind you. The first rule of policing, right? I didn't think a victim of someone who lost their child. I get out into the hallway of the hospital. He grabs behind me, gets on my back. He's hanging on me. Oh my God, he's crying. I lost my son. I put him in the quiet room. He goes, "Come on, let's get over with the questions." I'm like, this guy's freaking serious here? So we start questioning him, do whatever. The mother's a mess. And it turns out that he lied. I mean, Lividity told us completely that there was no way the boy was where he was. I ended up doing the autopsy. I photographed the autopsy she's now the chief medical examiner. Excellent medical examiner. She's fantastic, Dr. Hull. And then we go and we try to charge the guy. But it got ruled death while co-sleeping. But it was their third child. The first kid was dead. The second kid DCF took away. And the third child was the one I have. I'm like, okay, this is not just a random thing here. I mean, the actions had to be so wanton and negligent that led to the death of the child. No matter what we did, we just couldn't get it over the hump to charge. So a case like that is something where you're just like...
And he's still around?
Yeah. He's still around, but the case is, it's over now. It's 11 years. And it's like, that's something that eats me up to this day. I talk about him all the time. You know what I mean? There are cases that you really wish that you could put together, and sometimes you can't.
Do you have any regrets in your life?
Yeah, I wish I did some of the new things that I'm doing in policing now. I wish I knew how to have a little bit of balance with the job instead of making it my whole life, and this is not for brownie points, whatever. I'm gone now, so I'm not getting anything, but I was there 7 days a week, every day. Saturdays, Sundays, I'd be there, sweatpants, t-shirt, doing whatever, hanging out, organize my office 17 times over the weekend, be beautiful days, and hey, you gonna go here, you gonna go here? Nope, I gotta go on the station. Hey, we're all gonna go over here for the day or whatever. I miss things, do whatever. Some because they call me out, and some because I wouldn't let it go. You know what I mean? And I think I wish I changed things there a little bit.
You lived and breathed it.
Yeah, still do. I mean, that's why I said 8 jobs to 7. I went from the police department, but I knew I wasn't done. About 5 years ago, and that's what this pin is here, I got invited as a guest there's something called the VDOC Society in Philadelphia. And in 2015, and I won't bore you with the details, I'll make it quick. 2015, I go to take a crime scene class in Searcy. They're one of the biggest crime scene companies in the country. I take a class, and we do whatever. And by the time I left there during that week, I ended up working for them teaching. So a couple of years later, I find out the guy who was my instructor says to me, he goes, I gotta say, he goes, you take these classes that people out here who know how to do a few things or whatever it is, he goes, but you just knew stuff, like stuff that people didn't know. I said, yeah, because people that were way smarter than me taught me. And I always say what I'm teaching. I may not know the answer, but I am so lucky, and I'm lucky enough to know who to call to get it. Some people can't make that call. That's my gift, But, I started working for them, and at the end, now I'm teaching crime scene, and I'm doing these kind of things. So, and I'm working for the VDOC Society. I met a group of guys, and I'll kind of wrap it up with this, is everybody I just told you about, the old school guys that I was with, I just met at the age in my 50s. Again, they are just like me. Everybody just wants to do the work. They just want to do the case. And there's none of this, what do you mean, I think you should do this, I think you should do that. There is zero credit. They don't even want to know. They don't want you to put our name in if we help you. It's so quiet. And the idea is, it's very professional, and there's a mystique about the VDOC Society. Not too many people know about it. There's only 82 members in the whole country, full members. We have a couple of hundred specials. But police come from all over the country and internationally, and they request to have their case heard. They have a cold case, and they're like, hey, we've done everything we can think of, and we don't know what to do. But it's not like, oh, well, call Dave MacNeil and a couple of his buddies. It's, you have guys, FBI profilers, you have medical examiners, defense attorneys, crime scene guys, homicide.
All with lots of experience.
All with the 82 guys. So when you're giving that out, you might be weak in this area, but the medical examiner is saying, whoa, 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 you have all this to go on. And now there's a post-presentation group, and we stick with you after. And it's pro bono, and it's free, and we pay to go to the meetings ourselves, we pay to put ourselves up there, whatever.
Have you solved cases?
Yeah. And we don't want any credit. I shouldn't say we solve cases. We aid in the cases. Law enforcement solves them, but we say, hey, you might want to do this lead. And it's just something that's unbelievable. So now I'm working with Innovative Forensics down in Virginia, investigative genetic genealogy company. So, like you said, you work almost 4 decades. I think I know my way around a crime pretty good. I think I've seen a range of them, And then you get into this, cold cases, whole new world. Dave Pauly, the guy who invited me to VDOC Society from Searcy, who got me involved in all this stuff, he says to me, you know what the VDOC Society is? I go, yeah. Gives you the face. Yeah, you know what the VDOC Society is. I go, I'm telling you, I know what it is. Philadelphia, I tell him the whole story. He goes, you want to go? I said, how are we going to get in there? He goes, I'm a member. I go, you're a full member of the VDOC Society. He goes, yeah. I go, all right. I didn't believe him. This guy his daughter had a baby that night. He drove all the way from North Carolina to Philadelphia to meet me, to take me as a guest in 2019. And here I sit 5 years later, and I'm in my second term on the board of directors in the VDOC Society, which I can't believe. Do you know what I mean? And these are the things that I treasure. I went into the police academy. I waited forever to get this job. And things, you talk about police now, 300 kids took that job, took the test to become a police officer in Watertown for 2 jobs. Hundreds, 99s on the test, whatever, and you're like, I hope I even get called. Now, we have 11 openings, you can't get 7 people to apply. So, what I'm saying is, the job was completely different. And when you got the job, you stayed until they threw you out the door like Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cop, right out the glass, go, you gotta go. But that's different. It's just, you come in, you come out. But for me, I was able to get the job, go to the National Forensic Academy, do these kind of things, and it was...
Why do you think that's changed, where there's not so many people wanting to be cops now?
Well, look what's happening. The police do things that they're right. They're worried about getting sued every minute of the day. Police are hesitating, and they're getting injured because they're afraid to react because of the way they're going to be viewed. Everything you do, everything you say is filmed now, which is an advantage. People look at it, I don't want to be filmed. Why? If you do everything right, what's the problem? So what I'm saying is those films should also show when the bad guy is bad. If the police tell you to do something, you have to do something. And if they're wrong for telling you to do it, we'll work it out at that time. You can't just say, no, I'm not going to listen and do whatever. And then the case escalates on mushrooms into this big disaster. And now everybody's in trouble. But I really think that again, going back to what we said, the very, very small portion of people that happen, some of them are just catastrophes and they're tragedies that should never have happened, and some can be controlled. But there are ones when the people are really in the wrong, and right away it's get rid of the police. So my own nephews, they're all Hulks. I mean, they're all captains of football teams, do whatever, all four of them. They're captain of the college teams, everybody go, you never want to do a job in law enforcement? My brother was on the fire department. No, don't want it. I said, why don't you come work for me? I got my own business. I said, we do protection, private investigations, consulting, everything. And we give the customers the best, just like we work the cases like when we work the police department. Forget about money. Let's do your case first. No interest in law enforcement. I said, you'd be unbelievable. He goes, I'm not going to work 7 days a week for $150,000 a year, doing that kind of stuff when they could work somewhere else. And it's just nuts,
What are you proudest of, David, in your life? What are you proudest of in your life?
My children, 100%. Yeah, my kids. And, things didn't work out in my marriage, but I'm dating somebody now who helps me, and whatever, and I still have my kids. That's the thing. You see a lot of bad. In your career, and you see a lot of good. But I don't know, you think you're working every day, you think you're doing the right thing. You think you're doing the right thing that a father's supposed to do. That he's supposed to go to work, he's supposed to do what he has to do. And, you work 7 days a week, too bad, that's what you do. Suck it up. Things fell apart, but I still have my children, and I have a relationship with their mother and everything, but we're just trying to make everything meld as much as we can and go forward. But I think my kids, and then if you had to put the police in there, I went to the police academy. I was freaking 260 pounds when I went to the academy. And, you had to hop a wall. You had to do all these things. And when I tell you I just made it. And the day I said I was going to retire, I cried for freaking 3 hours. And the day I made that wall, I cried for 3 hours, And I went in there, I ended up becoming class president, and I got the 110% award. When I went to National Forensic Academy, I was class president. I was able to give the speech at graduation, I go to the VDOG Society, and luckily I get taken in by people again, completely groomed me. This guy's like Tom McAndrew. Like, this guy, you talk about a guy who knows homicides. I mean, I've seen him over the last 5 years help so many people and not even his name mentioned in cases, and he doesn't care. Do you know what I mean? This guy's writing books, this guy's doing things, this guy's doing all these kind of things, making cases, and it's like, well, who put you on that track? Well, Tom did. Tom's become like one of my best buddies. We do things quite a bit, and we work cold cases. And now I'm green again. Here I am, I'm 50-something years old, I'm retired, and I'm the green guy again, coming into cold cases. It's a whole new world.
You never stop learning.
No.
Keeps you young.
Yeah, the genetic genealogy stuff, unbelievable. So that's why I started the business. So you're still in it, and I'm still using every aspect and all of it, and I'm still learning. And when you talk about being on adrenaline, these cases keep you going. Teaching keeps you going. You got to have the passion, because if you don't, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Are there like almost like a sixth sense that you need to have as a detective that you develop over the years of doing this? You must, right?
We say it all the time.
You can read a lie.
We say it all the time. They always say these signs, the human deception, all these kind of things is a junk science. It really isn't. Do you know what I mean? When you talk to somebody, very quickly you know what's going on. And you don't have to talk about the arms folded, is he looking to the right, is he looking to the left, all these things they talk about. You can sense sincerity when you're talking to somebody. And just like I said to you before, they can too. They know when you're bullshitting them, and so do the police. And that's where the best, I think, the interviewers come in. I can't come in and ask you, did you do the crime first thing? And then you say no. What's the next question? Are you sure? Like, where do you go? There's nowhere to go. You have to have some type of rapport, I mean, those are some of the funniest stories I've ever had in my life. It was in interviews, doing interviews and things like that. I was mentioning my friend Tom McAndrew from the VDOG Society, another guy, Chris McMullen, detectives. We're like, hey, people come in all these times, and we talk to them, whether on our own or however it is, about things they need to do in their cases. And at the end of the day, a lot of departments say, well, that's great, but where do we get the money to do this? And so Chris had an idea, and he started it with Tom, and I end up kind of tagging along at the end. No part of it, what they did everything. To start Cold Case Initiative. It's a nonprofit to fund cold cases. And a police department will say, hey, I need money for a cold case. And we take the case and we do it. And what's great about it is that we don't do it on a popularity contest. It's not, hey, I want to donate to this case, but not that one. It's whatever the case is that has the best evidence to it. And 100% of the money goes to the part of it. And like in my business, I started MacNeil Investigations because MacNeil Investigations and Forensic Consulting, because we wanted to give that same dedication and passion that we talked about in cases to clients. So we kind of collaborate now as a team. Everybody has their own niche. Everybody stays in their own lane, but we're able to, if you were to call me on a case and say, I have this issue. Well, if it's a sexual crime, I got Steve Green, retired Captain SVU Manhattan for 24 years. He's the guy. Homicide missing person, Tom McAndrew. Crime scene, Brian O'Hara, Massachusetts State Police, or myself. Profiling, I have Dr. David Keatley out of Australia. So that's what we try to do. At the end of the day, this is what we want. And the same thing is we want to work with an innovative forensics. I've never seen anybody work like this. And it's really, it's not even a plug. It's the truth. I was blown away by the work that they do. And when they asked me to come along, I loved it because the ethic is there. It's all that high-end work ethic, which I really don't see a lot of anymore.
David, what would you say in all your years, what's the most important lesson you've learned in your life?
You got to slow it down. I believe it. You got to slow it down. I went 100 miles an hour on everything, and I lost it. A buddy of mine from Tennessee started a company, Slow Dog Forensics. He said the slow dog catches what the fast dog misses, And that's why we do crime scenes now. We do it together. What I see, you don't, and you see, I don't. And Charlie Walsh from the FBI taught me that. These are guys I'll never forget. You got to slow it down. And I mean, your personal life, the job, everything. Do you know what I mean? And you said before, if I could change something or regret, I wish I slowed it down just a little bit. If I could have done that, I think I would have been better off. But I'm trying to do it now. I'm on my own now doing some things, and we're slowing everything down, and we're trying to give the best we possibly can.
It's not too late.
Yeah.
All right. David MacNeil, thank you so much for sharing your story.
All right. Thanks.
It was great. Even though Soft White Underbelly consists of a lot of videos, it's really still a photography project to me. And if you appreciate the photography, sometimes it's difficult to enjoy it when it's scrolling down the screen, which is the only option I had in this horizontal format on YouTube. So last year we came out with the first Soft White Underbelly book, which is a collection of the best portraits from the thousands of interviews I've done. Each portrait in this book is accompanied by an interesting quote from the person's interview.
Oh my God.
There's more.
Wow. These aren't as bad as I thought. I look like a witch.
I will not be reprinting this book when it sells out. So once it's gone for good. You can order yours at softwhiteunderbelly.org. $125, $150 for a signed copy. And thank you for watching.